Yes, Jodies, welcome back to another episode. First thing I want to say is hope everyone's well. Second thing I want to say is at least I haven't scratched myself in my sleep again. Third thing I want to say is it looks like Newcastle United are still scratching their heads for an Alexander Isak replacement. And the name on everybody's lips that certainly divided opinion is Nicolas Jackson. Do you know what? I'm laughing now because I know there's going to be Newcastle fans watching this episode just pulling their hair out. So I'm going to do my best on trying to give you a best valuation opinion on Nicolas Jackson. I'm going to be looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's start by saying, how have we got ourselves in this position? We can't blame Man United for going after Sesko. We can't blame Liverpool for going after Hugo Ekitike. We can't blame Chelsea for going after Joao Pedro and Delap. We're in this position because we didn't prepare for this summer, and that is blatantly obvious. Now we're scratching our heads, looking for opportunity signings rather than signings that we actually want to bring in. Because if we truly, really wanted Nicolas Jackson, we would have targeted him as soon as Joao Pedro went to Chelsea, as soon as Liam Delap went to Chelsea. But no, we're going after him now because we've failed to get bodies over the line. Now, we've only got our own self to blame in that. And if you want to see me talking about how we're in this position and how we can get out of this position, how we can learn from this position, I did make a video that I will link in the description and I will also put at the end of this video. But let's talk about Nicolas Jackson because I do want to give you my honest opinion, and I want to start with the positive first. Let's start with the positive. Why would Newcastle United want to sign Nicolas Jackson? Well, does he suit Newcastle United's style of play? Newcastle are one of the most dangerous transitional teams in the Premier League. Jackson's patient acceleration can be a real weapon, and I truly believe that. He's a player that thrives in chaos. Newcastle United like to play in chaos in the final third. He can cover over long distances with and without the ball, and he's extremely direct, which is a positive. He's got the ability to drift wide, provide fluidity in the final third, which is exactly what Newcastle United do with Alexander Isak. When he was playing at Villarreal, he played centrally of a 4-3-3 system, which is exactly what Newcastle United play. He was partnered by Chukwueze and Jeremy Pino out wide, allowing Jackson to show how dynamic he was and combine with those two wingers. So that's very similar to how Newcastle United set up, because Jeremy Pino is a classic winger. What I mean by classic winger is a right footer on the right wing. That's something similar to what Anthony Elanga is going to bring, a right footer on the right wing. And then you've got your inverted winger, which is a left winger. So stylistically, I'm not talking about ability here, just stylistically and profile-wise, he kind of suits the way Newcastle United play. Now, I also think Nicolas Jackson would suit a two-tier system, but only if you partnered him with a box presence or a target man. And what I mean by that is Nicolas Jackson would be an excellent Nicolas Anelka to your Didier Drogba. So that's a positive. He actually does, if we take all the football ability and football IQ to his side, his profile and the way he wants to play actually suits the way we're looking to play. Does that make sense? I'm not talking about ability here, which we will get onto very shortly. I'm not talking about football IQ or composure or anything like that. I'm just looking at his raw attributes. What he likes to do on a football pitch is exactly what Newcastle United need in their system. So systematically, he does fit. Let's be brutally honest about it and let's be fair to the guy. And there is a big however. Let's just take a step back. If you're asking me, is Nicolas Jackson worth 80 million? Absolutely not. Personally, I don't think he's worth 80 million. I don't think he's as bad as what people say, and we'll get onto that very shortly. But what I'm saying is there's other strikers available for cheaper, which would allow us to strengthen better and bigger and build a deeper squad, such as Moise Keane. He's got a release clause of 50 million. Ricardo Pepi, Goncalo Ramos, Randall Koulibaly, Emmanuel Omega, and that could go on and on and on. There are plenty of strikers out there that will be better value for money than Chelsea asking for 80 million euros for Nicolas Jackson. Secondly, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We all know he's incredibly raw, to say the least. He needs a lot of work, a lot of development, and truth be told, when you're bringing in Nicolas Jackson to replace Alexander Isak, it is a downgrade, and that is me being brutally honest. And I'll say it again, there's a reason why Chelsea wanted to sign Liam Delap and Joao Pedro to offload Nicolas Jackson. They're two players that we wanted to sign, so we're pretty much settling for Chelsea's third best option, and that's what I'm frustrated about, how we've got to this position. And the reason why I say he's overpriced at 80 million euros, if he was still at Villarreal, he would be maximum 40 to 50 million euros. The only reason he's priced at 80 million euros is because he's playing at Chelsea and he's playing in the Premier League. But you're never going to get me sitting here saying he's shit, he's terrible, he's a waste of space, he's going to bring nothing, because that gets you nowhere. That's just lazy analysis. So what I am going to do is try my best to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly of Nicolas Jackson. So let's start with the ugly. And the ugly is discipline. I think we've all seen it. We're not blind. You can clearly see there's an attitude problem. So does he even pass the non-dickhead test? That is something that you've got to consider because you don't want to upset the squad dynamics. In Newcastle United, squad dynamics are extremely thin at the moment. So what I mean by discipline issues, we've seen it at St James's Park last season. In one of Chelsea's most important games of the season, he couldn't control his temper. He lashed out at Sven Botman, tried elbowing him, got himself sent off. With that in mind, think about all the tantrums he has when he's substituted. We can't have that in Newcastle United. And then we all seen that penalty situation with Noni Manueki. It was just embarrassing. And that's me being completely honest. Across the last 2 Premier League seasons, he's had 17 yellow cards, 1 red card, but he was also sent off 4 games later in the Club World Cup. So it goes without saying that emotional intelligence, that emotional control just isn't there right now. So that is something that you would have to try and develop it within him. One of my mottos in life is one man's trash is another man's treasure. So I've got to apply the same rule here. Otherwise, I would just be a hypocrite. And I think you should as well. I think we should approach these signings in an open mind because we all know Eddie Howe can improve players. And I'm going to talk about how he's improved Alexander Isak throughout this video. Now, what he could do this similar to Nicolas Jackson in order for his output to be a lot better. Because let's be honest, he has underperformed his XG. That's red flag number 1. But if Eddie Howe can get a hold of him, just make him understand patterns of play a little bit better, understand the game a little bit better, then I'm sure his output would actually increase. So one man's trash is another man's treasure. Let's just remember that throughout this window because I think that's what we're going to have to get used to when we are bringing players in because we've missed out on our first target, missed out on our second target, missed out on our third target, 4th, 5th, 6th. Now we're probably on to our 8th target. So the first thing we're going to talk about is his movement because I think there's good aspects and there's areas for improvement, should I say. So the first point I want to make, he's a willing runner. He's fast, he's agile, he's explosive, he likes to run in and behind, and he's dynamic. So his movement doesn't really worry me because he's that chaotic type of striker. He wants to cause chaos in that final third. There's nothing easier than defending against a static forward. So he does cause defenders a lot of problems with his movement. He's got explosive acceleration, quick burst over short distances, and he's got excellent stubble movements and moving in open space. He runs, he prefers darting from central areas into half spaces, especially in that right-hand channel. He also can create wide overload, so he can drift out wide, rotate with his teammates and isolate fullbacks if he's in possession. His movement is slightly reactive rather than, what I mean by that is he thrives in open and broken play. His movement is never calculated, it's never thought out, it's never 2 steps ahead, it's always instinctive and reactive. And that's probably why he does his best work in chaos. Now his movement is also unpredictable, and to be fair to the lad, he does a very good job in stretching backlines, whether that be horizontally or vertically. So he does a good job in pulling defenders into positions that they don't want to be, whether that be forcing centre-backs to go into wide areas or forcing centre-backs to drop deep into midfield, leaving a gaping hole for a midfield runner. So his movement actually would bring a lot of what Newcastle United are looking for. Now, there is some negatives with his movement. And the first one, and the most obvious one, is poor spatial awareness. He doesn't scan before he moves. That leads him into making the wrong decisions and not making the right decision to find open spaces or correct runs. So I put that down to his low football IQ. Nicolas Jackson had the 4th most offsides in the Premier League last season, only behind Evanilson, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, surprisingly, and Chris Wood. So the lack of understanding patterns of play is quite scary. But another thing that I do really like is how good he is at creating separation from his markers. He's got this excellent ability of a little drop of shoulder, modulating his speed with stop and starts, but also dropping deep and then spinning behind. So what I'm trying to say here is movement can be troubling, but it's never intelligent. And I think that's what Eddie Howe needs to work with. Just getting him to tactically understand the rhythm of the game a little bit better. But when I talk about his movement, it's incredibly all over the shop. And this is what I'm talking about. As you can see, he takes most of his touches in that right half space channel. And I said he's got that ability to stay centrally and then carve his run into the channels. That's what he likes to do. But as you can see, he's comfortable in all areas of the pitch. And he's even comfortable dropping deep and getting involved in the build-up play, which we will touch on very shortly. But his movement is quite sporadic around the final third, which I do really like. Just needs to have a little bit more intelligence to his movement, and that would just elevate his threat and transitions even more. Now, one thing I will say is his movement actually helps his teammates, but I don't think he does it on purpose. I don't think it's a thought out process. Like, I'm going to move into this space to create that space for Cole Palmer to run into, for example. His movement is more selfish movement, but it always seems to work for him because he drags defenders away. By by sometimes making the wrong choice, looks like he's made the right choice. But the majority of times we have seen him getting in other players' way. So when it comes to his desire and his willingness to get involved in playing, just be an outlet for his team, he's super comfortable doing that, which I really like. So we need to take the good with the bad in all this situation. So next we're going to talk about his creativity, his dribbling, and then we're going to finish on his finishing, because I do want to talk about his dribbling, because in my opinion, guys, I think this is Nicolas Jackson's quietly become his most valuable trait, which is link-up play, creativity, dribbling, getting on the ball, bringing other players into play. His expected assists over the past 2 seasons has been 4.8. He's actually assisted 10 times, so he's overperforming his XG, which is a real positive. Now, one thing I will say about his creativity, his link-up play, it offsets his poor finishing. He's got this ability to get into good goal-scoring positions, and that ultimately keeps one of the opposition defenders occupied, so it frees up space for one of his teammates. But his movement and his link-up play also creates chances for others around him, and that's me being honest. Now, Nicolas Jackson is actually technically better when it comes to dribbling than most think. Now, his first touch can be a little bit erratic, but when he's able to create separation from his marker, he's really dynamic and explosive, and he can move away from his marker tremendously well. So what I'm trying to say is he's unpredictable to read on the dribble with his speed, somewhat awkward style, should we say, with his ball carrying, which really elevates his threat. He's got this excellent ability to turn away from tight markers. We've seen it at Stamford Bridge against Dan Burn when he come in short to receive the ball and he took the touch with the outside of his foot and he spun Dan Burn. That's me being perfectly honest, and he's got that ability, but he doesn't do it often enough. He's athletic, he's physical, and he's technically actually very good. He provides pace, agility, he's got good ball retention skills. He's a threat in open spaces. He's comfortable in tight spaces and in half spaces. So when it comes to just asking for the ball to feet and changing his direction quickly, he can do all that. But when it comes to taking care of his first touch, sometimes it can be erratic and he does miscontrol the ball, but he's decent in transitions. He spots runners, but he's not a pure playmaker. Now, one thing I do like about him, he's dynamic. He's always forward facing, so he's always trying to make things happen, offering himself as an outlet for his teammate to use. So there's definitely positives to see when he's on the dribble and when he's trying to link up play. So Nicolas Jackson is not a pure creator. That's not what I'm saying, but he's a valuable connector. Somebody that can drop layoffs and then spin in behind. Somebody that can invite others into play. And we've seen it so many times with Cole Palmer last season. He actually struck up a great partnership with Cole Palmer. So when it comes to Nicolas Jackson, in my opinion, to get the very best out of him, you need to have runners off him. So when he does come and show for the ball, you need to have midfield runners from deep because he works on instincts. So it's all about first touch, one touch, give and goes. If you want him to hold up the ball and be that lone striker, then I'm sorry, guys, you're not going to get the best out of Nicolas Jackson because 9 times out of 10, after a while, he's going to lose possession. So this is his progressive passes and progressive running actions from last season. So the black is his dribbles and the white is progressive passes. Now, as you can see, he dribbles a lot in that right-hand channel. And this is what I spoke about, is the ability to get in that right-hand channel. That this could actually work well with Newcastle United because the way we set up, our right winger is the one who hugs the touchline. He's the one that provides width on that right-hand side, whereas our left winger comes inside. So if they're both coming inside, him and Anthony Gordon could rotate and cause a lot of confusion within that back line for the opposition. So that is something that I would be looking at if I was Eddie Howe. I'd be getting Anthony Gordon in and around Nicolas Jackson so they can play off each other. Because if you play Nicolas Jackson as a lone striker, sorry, you're not going to get the best out of him. He needs bodies around him because he's instinctive like that. When it comes to his running actions, most of his progressive runs come in that right-hand channel instead of the left-hand channel. Now, I spoke about his ability to carry the ball, and as you can see, he carries a ball quite often, and he carries a ball over large distances, which is a real positive. Now, he also, during the 2022-23 season, finished with the most successful dribbles than any other forward in the Premier League. That just goes to show that he's got the ability to take on a man when he has to. I'm not saying it's perfect, it's still raw, but the elements and the ability is actually there. And we all know he's got that quality to play as a winger. Now, which actions finished in a shot, a goal, or kept possession? The ones in white, the white circles are the one where he dribbled, but they kept possession, so he recycled possession. The ones in black are where he dribbled, started a dribble, and it ended in a shot. The ones in a diamond shape are the ones where he didn't dribble, and it ended in a goal. And as you can see, that statistic is quite pleasing because it's from all areas of the pitch. He's super comfortable being effective from any area of the pitch, and we need to give him the benefit of the doubt here because he's not actually a bad footballer. No footballer that reaches this level is bad, is terrible. Every footballer that reaches this level has ability. There's just some players that are fitted to the right system where it brings their ability to the next level. So it would be super easy for me to sit here and say, oh, he's bad at this, he's bad at that, I don't want him, he's terrible, he's crap. But in terms of on-the-ball effectiveness and being dangerous in transition moments, Nicolas Jackson can actually bring a lot in Newcastle United. So look, that's me trying to look at the good side of things. That's some stuff that he will bring and some stuff that he will need to improve on, because definitely not the finished article, and he's definitely not perfect, and he's definitely not worth 80 million in my opinion. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This is probably what you've all been waiting for, because what do you want your striker to do? You want your striker to score goals. If Alexander Isak is leaving Newcastle United, we've got 23 goals that we need to make up from somewhere. Will Nicolas Jackson bring us 23 goals to replace Alexander Isak's, if he does leave, let's say? Now, let's start talking about Nicolas Jackson's finishing. Let's look at his XG across his last 2 Premier League seasons. He's had an XG of 32.68 and he scored 23 goals. I can't even sugarcoat it. He's finishing well, is inconsistent to say the least. Let's just talk about what type of finisher is he. He's a reactive finisher. Often finishes on broken play, instincts rather than calculated technique. Now let's get one positive that I really do like out of the way. I always say in my videos, I want my striker to at least be taking 3 shots per 90. He averages over 3 shots per 90, which is what I want and need in my striker. The second point I want to make, which is a positive, because his XG is 32.68, that shows that he can actually get into good positions. Now the negatives. Ball striking being the first one. Uses toe pokes, quick flicks, rather than striking the ball with adequate venom or conviction. He lacks confidence and composure to score his chances. He's got inconsistent decision making in terms of shot selection, using the wrong and incorrect technique. That's meant to say incorrect, by the way. And I put this all down to his low football IQ. I mentioned this at the start of the video because that's leading him waiting too long to make strikes, or alternatively snatching at chances when he's got time to take a touch. And then thirdly, lacks a correct body shape. The ability to set yourself ready to take a chance, whether that be positionally or coordinate yourself in order to give you the best opportunity of scoring that opportunity. Now take this header for example. He's got a free header and he's literally bang on square the goal. The trouble about Nicolas Jackson, he's got no conviction or placement in his shot. It's like he just tries to hit the target and that'll be good enough. There's no conviction in what he's trying to do. You look across all the elite strikers in the world, their ball striking technique is absolutely insane, whether that be Erling Haaland, Harry Kane, Alexander Isak. They've all got this adequate venom style of technique that can strike the ball with pure conviction. Nicolas Jackson doesn't have that. So if I'm Eddie Howe, that is the very first thing I'd be working on, is technique when he's striking the ball. Now I'm going to be perfectly honest, that is not something you should be saying to a player playing in the Premier League. Now, he also doesn't have that real desire and hunger to score goals. Look at this opportunity. Now, he's hovering around the back post, waiting for Noni Madueke to deliver the cross. He should be getting inside that in between the posts, because if he makes that stubble little movement, he's got to tap in on goal. So those are the little things I would try to correct with Nicolas Jackson, to make those stubble little movements. Often his choice is made up for him, and it's harder to miss than it is to score. So most of Nicolas Jackson's goals come from breaking down the opposition's defense, whether that be counterattacks, transitions. This is why he often struggles when he's got time to think about it, or against organized defenses. Now, finally, I want to look at his XG map and compare it to Alexander Isak's. And when you look at this, this is not good reading. Now, let's look at the positive. The one positive is he actually gets into good positions, because you need to get into the position in order for you to have that opportunity. So the fact that he's getting into those positions and having those high circles, that's one positive to take away from any of this, if there is a positive. Now, when you look over the past 3 seasons in the Premier League, Nicolas Jackson's been there 2 seasons and a half, sorry. He has missed the 3rd most big chances per 90, only behind Darwin Núñez and Erling Haaland. So that's negative number 1. Negative number 2, he's underperformed his XG. He was expected to score 12 goals. He only scored 10. Now, let's just quickly describe this diagram. The bigger the circle, the bigger an opportunity it is. The smaller the circle, the less of an opportunity and the less likely you are to finish that chance. Now, the first thing that is visible to everybody is how many big circles that aren't filled out, which means he's missed those opportunities. And look at those opportunities just around that 6-yard box. No wonder Chelsea fans have been pulling their hairs out. Those are opportunities with a high XG, so he's expected to score those chances. This is what I was talking about, just his conviction in front of goal needs improving. His decision making, his timing, his technique he chooses, and his body position, all those compromised into one is what's letting him down. So you're Eddie Howe and you're looking at this and you're thinking, how can I improve this? Well, the fact is, Eddie Howe actually improved Alexander Isak, and this is how he done it. At the beginning of last season, Alexander Isak did an interview saying, Eddie and I have been working on getting more 6-yard goals in terms of positioning. So getting yourself in that 6-yard box, because once you're in that box and you're in between the posts, you've got a higher chance of scoring than missing. Over last season, only 2 players in Europe's top 5 league had more 6-yard goals than Alexander Isak. So the fact that Eddie Howe has seen this in Alexander Isak and tried to work on it and improved it, I'm kind of thinking he would need to do something similar with Nicolas Jackson. So with Nicolas Jackson, there would be a lot of work that needs to be done, and that's me being brutally honest. But again, me being brutally honest, there are a lot of elements that you can work on. But for me, the biggest thing that you need to work on is his tactical intelligence and his decision making, because once you get that right, the rest will start slowly but to fall into place. But look, guys, I want to hear your thoughts. I've tried to give you an honest opinion on Nicolas Jackson, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want to hear your thoughts. If it was 40 million, would you welcome him to St. James's Park? Because I'm going to go on record and saying there's definitely a player in there. There is definitely a player in Nicolas Jackson. It's just trying to get that out of him and trying to get him a bit more clever in the way he works on a football pitch. But I want to hear your thoughts, not just about my opinion. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Once again, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, stay safe, enjoy your weekend. Away the lads.